The sky above Kesserin 4 pulsed with hostile fire, each blast shaking the colony deeper into ruin. The last shield dome flickered like a dying ember, thin arcs of blue cascading across its surface before stabilizing again. Captain Arlene Voss watched from the central bunker's cracked viewport, jaw clenched, hand braced against the reinforced glass as another tremor rolled through the floor. Dust drifted from overhead pipes, floating through the smoky air in slow spiraling motions. "Status?" she asked without looking back. Lieutenant Marek wiped grime from his visor. "Shields at 12%. West Hab block collapsed." "Casualties?" He hesitated. "Heavy." Arlene forced down the surge of anger rising in her chest. Not at her people, never at them. At the predator above them, circling with calculated cruelty. At the fact that out here, on a neglected frontier system, they had been left to face an invading empire alone. "Start another sweep for survivors," she said. "Even one matters." "Yes, Captain." The bunker hummed with failing power. Damaged monitors sputtered, technicians shouting as they rerouted dwindling energy supplies. The comm grid was still a mess of static, every frequency jammed. Arlene had given up on long-range calls days ago, every plea vanished into electronic silence. Kesserin 4 wasn't a fortress. It wasn't meant to be. It was a mining colony, rock, dust, and families who trusted the frontier promise of opportunity. Now they stood on the brink of annihilation. A low tremor shuddered across the floor. Arlene caught the railing as the entire bunker lurched. "They've begun another orbital volley," a technician warned, voice cracking. "They're targeting the reactor conduits now." Arlene pushed off the railing. "Evacuate the mid-sector tunnels. We hold the lower shafts only. No debates." A woman at the far station hesitated. "Captain, that means—" "I know." Arlene didn't let the tremor in her voice show. "Move." The team obeyed. Every second of hesitation cost lives now. She turned from the chaos and stepped to the tactical display. A hologram blinked before her, thin flickers of blue representing their militia squads, red clusters marking the enemy's positions. The map looked like a wound, red spreading through vital structures, blue shrinking into the mines beneath. The Scar Dominion's emblem glowed on the upper corner, 3 jagged slashes intersecting a scarred circle. A mark carried by marauders who gutted frontier worlds and enslaved populations. Their warlord, Overlord Karzul, had torn through the Erebos system with brutal efficiency. And now his shadow crept toward them. A sudden crackle burst through the room's central speaker. Harsh, guttural tones twisted into something resembling speech. The technicians froze. Arlene leaned closer. The voice was low, predatory, dripping smug certainty. "Captain Arlene Voss. Your resistance impresses me, but your shield crumbles. Your people die. Surrender Kesserin 4, and they may yet live as workers beneath the Dominion." Arlene exhaled slowly, drawing the calm she'd cultivated through a dozen battles. She hit the comm switch. "Karzul," she said, enunciating each word with measured restraint. "Kesserin 4 doesn't belong to you. It never will. We will not kneel." A rumbling laugh filled the bunker. "You misunderstand. I offer mercy out of amusement, not necessity. Your colony will break. Your bones will litter the mines you cling to. Accept your fate, human." The transmission cut. The silence that followed was colder than vacuum. Marek approached quietly. "Captain, morale is slipping. People think the Dominion will breach within hours." Arlene's gaze dropped to the hologram again. The red clusters had grown. "They're not wrong," she said. Then she straightened, voice steady. "But fear doesn't dictate our choices. We don't surrender to invaders. Not today." Outside, another bombardment slammed into the shield. Arlene felt the vibration all the way down her spine. "Get the next defensive line ready," she ordered. "I want every squad armed and dug in. Set charges along the secondary tunnels, we'll collapse them if the Scar break through." Marek nodded and rushed out. Behind her, a familiar voice spoke. "You can't hold them forever." Arlene turned to see Vesh, the insectoid engineer who had lived on Kesserin 4 longer than any human. His chitinous armor was scored with scorch marks, one of his delicate sensory fronds hung limp. Yet his eyes, deep amber, always observant, held their usual calm. "We don't need forever," Arlene replied. "Just long enough." "For what?" he asked softly. "Reinforcements that will never arrive." She didn't answer. She couldn't. Even her faith in distant fleets had limits. Kesserin 4 was too far from Terran centers, too low on strategic priority. The nearest battle group was months away, if they even received the colony's calls before the Dominion jammed them. Still, if she voiced doubt, everything would collapse. "We buy time," she said. "We protect civilians. That's our purpose." Vesh studied her for a long moment. Then he gave a slow nod. "Then I work with you until the last light fades." A distant detonation thundered through the tunnels, shaking the floor once more. Warning lights flashed across the bunker. "Captain," a technician shouted. "The northern access conduits just fell." Arlene grabbed her rifle from the wall mount. "Marek, seal off the upper junction. Vesh, reroute all remaining power into the shield dome. Only the shield matters." She sprinted toward the exit, boots striking metal. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. The closer she got to the surface plateau, the louder the bombardment became, like giants slamming their fists against the sky. As she climbed the ladder to the outer observation deck, she heard civilians crying below, wounded being carried deeper underground, the heavy clatter of weapons being prepared by exhausted soldiers. At the top hatch, she shoved it open and stepped out. The sky was a battlefield. Scar cruisers hovered like obsidian beasts above the colony, red plasma burning along their hulls. Their bombardment flared against the weakening shield, each impact lighting the dome like a blue firestorm. Arlene tightened her grip on the railing. "Hold just a little longer," she whispered to the trembling barrier. But the shield betrayed its weakness. A new strike hammered the surface, and this time, the dome buckled inward, entire segments dissolving in a cascade of sparks. A warning siren wailed across the colony. "Shield integrity, 6%, the bunker AI reported through her earpiece. Arlene's heart dropped. "They want to finish us now," she murmured. Another barrage hit, harsher than the last. The remaining section of the dome flared white, then dimmed to a sickly blue. Behind her, smoke rose from ruined buildings. Flames crawled across the eastern ridge. Families huddled in collapsed alleyways, waiting for the moment the sky finally opened and swallowed them. Arlene closed her eyes just long enough to gather her resolve. "Not today," she whispered. As she turned toward the hatch, a final tremor rippled through the ground, stronger, deeper, different from the bombardment. The metal beneath her boots vibrated with a strange, rhythmic pulse. The sky darkened. Not from smoke. From something enormous warping the stars. Arlene froze. What was that? The horizon shimmered like fluid glass. Then the world shook. And the fabric of space began to tear open. End of chapter 1. If you'd like, I can now begin chapter 2. The tremor faded, leaving only a thin echo quivering through the metal rail beneath Arlene's hands. The tear in the sky had vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced once again by the crimson glow of scar plasma drifting across the clouds. For a moment she wondered if exhaustion had conjured the distortion. She blinked hard, steadying her breath. "Captain Voss." Marek's voice crackled through her earpiece. "We're losing the east tunnel access. I need you back inside, now." "I'm coming," she answered, stepping away from the railing. The hatch slammed shut behind her. Heat from the bombardment radiated through the metal, hinting at how thin their protective shell had become. She descended the ladder, boots clanging in steady rhythm, each step accompanied by distant cries and tremors. The bunker felt smaller than before, crowded with medics rushing wounded soldiers to makeshift beds and engineers clustered around flickering screens. Vesh stood hunched over a console, mandibles clicking anxiously. "What happened out there?" the engineer asked without turning. "A spatial anomaly," Arlene replied. "It lasted a heartbeat." "Anomaly?" He straightened, eyes narrowing. "Describe it." "Distortion across the horizon. Like space folded inward." Vesh's mandibles twitched. "That is no atmospheric effect." "I didn't say it was," she returned. "But we don't have time to chase illusions. Talk to me about the tunnels." Marek stepped forward, face streaked with soot and sweat. We lost 3 squads in the last hour. The scar breached sectors 4 and 5. We sealed the shafts, but they're clearing the rock faster than expected. How long? Arlene asked. 6 hours if we're lucky, Marek replied. 3 if they deploy melt cutters. A technician in the corner swore as another console went dark. Power relays are degrading. Shields at 5%. We can't keep diverting current, something's going to blow. Arlene rubbed her forehead. Keep the shield active as long as possible. Once it falls, we move everyone into the lowest levels. Marek, prepare fallback positions. He nodded grimly. Before she could speak again, Vesh motioned her toward his console. Captain, I need your attention. Make it quick. He tapped the display. A faint wave pattern pulsed across the screen, soft, uneven, almost lost among static. I found this while reinforcing the grid, he said. A spike in the deep spectrum channel. Very brief. Less than a second. Arlene leaned closer. Is it Dominion interference? No, Vesh said. Their jamming is broadband and aggressive. This was precise. Focused. Arlene frowned. What are you suggesting? That it's artificial. And not scar. She shut her eyes a moment, pressing down the surge of fragile hope rising inside her. Hope was dangerous, more dangerous than fear. Hope made people falter when it vanished again. Vesh, she said quietly, I can't put faith in ghosts. We've had false signals before. Those were broad distortions, he insisted. This one is structured. Listen. He replayed it. A faint trill echoed through the speaker, barely audible beneath static. But it had rhythm. Intent. I want to believe it, Arlene whispered. But the nearest Terran fleet is weeks away. Vesh's eyes fixed on her. Possibility, however small, is still a vector. Even a distant chance alters decisions. She exhaled slowly. Then what do you propose? Amplify and refine the signal. If it repeats, we'll know it's not random. Arlene nodded, though she kept her expression guarded. Do it. But I can't tell the others until we have proof. Understood. Another explosion shook the bunker, sending tools and datapads clattering off tables. A ceiling panel snapped loose, smashing into the floor. Everyone ducked instinctively. Marek swore into the direct hit on the southern ridge. Shields fell to 4%. Arlene steadied herself and raised her voice. Stations, all of you. Hold positions. The crew scrambled back to work. Fear lingered, but orders gave them shape, structure amid chaos. She turned to Marek. How many civilians left topside? Maybe 60, he said. Most made it down. Search parties are still out. Pull them back. No more runs. The next volley will tear open the dome. He hesitated. Some won't make it in time. We save who we can, she replied. Get it done. Marek left with a curt nod. Arlene moved to the central map display again. Red clusters were spreading through the mining grid. The Dominion ground teams had begun descent, deploying razorwalkers, spindly machines that carved through tunnels with terrifying speed. She tapped her all squads, report status. Voices answered one by one, tired, strained, determined. Sector 1 holding. Sector 2 breached, falling back to Junction B. Sector 3 under heavy push, requesting reinforcements. Negative, Arlene said. Redistribute from Sector 5. Hold Junction B at all costs. A final voice broke through the channel. Captain, this is Squad Theta. We found survivors trapped under a collapsed corridor. Children. We're extracting them now. Her throat tightened. Theta, you prioritize that extraction. Leave the corridor once they're safe. Yes, The channel closed. She allowed herself a single deep breath. Human voices kept her anchored. Each one reminded her why she refused to break. Vesh suddenly straightened at his console. Captain, the signal, there's another spike. Arlene hurried to him. Show me. The waveform flashed again, faint but deliberate. This time longer, 2 seconds, pulsing with unmistakable patterning. It can't be local, Vesh murmured. The timing, the structure. This is a warp shadow echo. Arlene's eyes widened. A ship. Something massive, he said. Something moving fast. Her heart hammered once, sharp and painful. Could it be Terran? I cannot confirm origin, Vesh said. But the distortion suggests a vessel entering near-system space. Before Arlene could speak, a thunderous crash reverberated overhead. The lights flickered violently. A technician shouted, "Shield collapsed in Sector East. Full breach." Screams rose through the comm from civilian channels. The Dominion had a clear line to the colony now. Arlene lifted her rifle. "Marek, we're sealing the east access. All defenders pull to the lower junction." "Yes, Captain." She moved toward the exit tunnel, signaling soldiers to follow. Dust swirled through the passage as boots pounded behind her. Another explosion erupted, louder, deeper, shaking the entire foundation. But this blast didn't sound like the Dominion's plasma artillery. It had a different timbre. More like atmospheric displacement. The ground rumbled again, rhythmic and growing. Vesh's voice crackled urgently in her ear. "Captain, the warp signature, it's accelerating." "Meaning what?" she demanded. "Something is arriving. Now." Arlene reached the end of the tunnel and paused. A blinding flash burst beyond the ridge, piercing even the smoke-choked sky. Wind roared through the breach. Civilians screamed. Soldiers braced themselves. Space itself seemed to ripple. And a voice broke through every comm channel simultaneously, clear, controlled, unmistakably human. "Kesserin 4, stand by. Reinforcements incoming." Arlene froze. For the first time in days, she felt her knees weaken, not from fear, but from the weight of impossible relief. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "They heard us." Then the sky split open. End of Chapter 2. I can continue with Chapter 3 when you're ready. The flash above Kesserin 4 expanded into a blinding arc that swallowed the sky. Clouds tore apart in a halo of violet fire as gravitational ripples distorted the air. Arlene shielded her eyes, jaw clenched as every instinct warned her she was witnessing something far beyond ordinary FTL arrival protocols. A thunderous boom followed, deep, resonant, rolling through the valley like a living force. The ground shook with the impact of a cosmic hammer. Dust lifted in a swirling column, drifting down over the colony in a shimmering haze. When the light faded enough to see, Arlene lowered her arm. She froze. A warship hung in orbit, colossal, angular, shimmering with burnished armor that caught the fractured sunlight. It dwarfed the Dominion cruisers. Its silhouette was unmistakable, a Terran Valkyrie-class dreadnought, a vessel rarely deployed beyond major conflict zones. Across its hull, glowing letters marked its name. UT's Archangel Sovereign. Arlene's breath left her in a single sharp exhale. This can't be real. Marek stumbled to her side, eyes wide. "Captain, that's a capital ship. Those don't come out here. Ever." Vesh joined them, antennae lifted toward the sky. Its warp signature matches the anomaly. It forced a full space breach without anchor points. The energy required is extreme. Static flashed in Arlene's earpiece, followed by a calm, steady voice. "Kesserin 4 Command, this is Captain Rillan Ward of the Archangel Sovereign. Your distress signals reached a listening post." We answered. Arlene swallowed hard. "Captain Ward, this is Captain Arlene Voss. We feared the Dominion jammed all outbound signals." "They did," Ward replied. "But one reached us by echo relay. We were already en route to a different sector. We made a detour." Arlene blinked. A detour? For a dreadnought? That meant they'd risked hull integrity and reactor strain to arrive early. Only humanity would push a battleship past safe limits for a frontier colony. Ward continued, "Hold positions. Engaging Scar Fleet." The channel cut, replaced by a tactical signature feed. The dreadnought shifted, engines brightening as its broadside cannons charged. Light crawled across the ship's flanks, rows of gleaming rail batteries, missile ports, and plasma beam conduits awakening like a giant roused from slumber. Arlene watched the Dominion ships scramble into formation, panic rippling through their ranks. Their cruisers adjusted vectors, triangular silhouettes pivoting around the dreadnought. Marek whispered, "They weren't expecting this." "No," Arlene murmured. "They planned a slaughter. They didn't plan justice." A streak of incandescent blue shot from the dreadnought's forward cannon. The beam carved through a Scar destroyer, splitting it from bow to stern. A white-hot explosion lit the upper atmosphere, fragments burning into glittering embers. Arlene heard soldiers behind her shouting in disbelief. Hope rippled through the defenders like a jolt of electricity. Another volley launched, this time a sequence of rail rounds that moved faster than sound. They struck a cruiser and punched through its shields before the Dominion even adjusted trajectory. The vessel spiraled, engines rupturing. Vesha's mandibles clicked in stunned awe. Their weapon calibration is impeccable. No misfires. No delay. Flawless targeting. "It's a Terran dreadnought," Arlene said. "Built to end wars, not start them." The Dominion fleet retaliated with a barrage of plasma, streaks of red cutting across the void. The dreadnought's barrier absorbed the strikes with minimal distortion, just ripples across a luminous shield. Ward's voice returned on the comm Kesserin 4 defenders. "Prepare for surface support. We are deploying shock drop units to reinforce your positions." Arlene steadied herself. "Understood. We'll coordinate." Marek's voice snapped through the local channel. "Captain, the Scar on the ground are regrouping. They're rushing the eastern breach." Arlene tightened her grip on her rifle. The battle wasn't over, not yet. "Rally at Junction B," she ordered. "Keep them from reaching the lower levels." She sprinted through the tunnel, soldiers forming behind her with renewed urgency. For the first time since the siege began, they weren't running toward hopeless defense, they were running toward survival. When they reached Junction B, the air was choked with dust. Arlene raised her rifle and scanned the shadows. Dominion foot soldiers approached, tall, armored, with sickle-shaped rifles drawn close. Their guttural snarls echoed down the corridor. "Hold the front," Arlene shouted. Her squad crouched, rifles steady. She squeezed her trigger, sending precise bursts into advancing shapes. Marek fired from her right, dropping a Scar warrior attempting to flank. Grenades detonated further down the shaft, lighting the rock walls in orange bursts. The humid air sizzled from energy fire. Then something roared overhead, a mechanical shriek that vibrated the metal framework. A spherical pod pierced through the tunnel's upper vent, slamming onto the floor with perfect precision. Its shell split open, steam hissing outward. Figures emerged, Terran drop troopers in armored exosuits, visors glowing amber. Their commander stepped forward, voice amplified through the suit. "Surface Team Delta 9. Reinforcement deployed." Arlene lowered her rifle, stunned. "How did you?" "The tunnels weren't mapped." The trooper raised his chin. "We scanned the geology during descent. Now point us to the enemy." She didn't waste a second. "Dominion troops in the east shaft. They're advancing fast. Then we stop them." He turned to his squad. "Delta 9, move." The drop troopers surged forward with mechanical precision. Their heavy weapons lit the corridor in brilliant arcs. Scar forces, previously unstoppable, faltered under the sudden shift in firepower. Arlene followed close behind, providing cover fire. Dust swirled around her boots as debris fell from overhead. A Scar warrior leapt from a ledge, blade arcing downward. Arlene dodged, firing 2 shots that struck its plating. Marek tackled the creature before it could recover, driving his knife between its armor segments. Breathing hard, Arlene pressed against the wall. All around her, Terran and colony defenders pushed the enemy back, step by step. Above ground, the battle in orbit intensified. Through the surface cracks, bursts of light flashed like distant thunderstorms. Vesha's voice came through the comm, breathless. "Captain, the Dominion fleet is fracturing. They are attempting to retreat." "Ward won't let them," she replied. Indeed, the dreadnought unleashed its final barrage, a sequence of beams that crippled 3 more cruisers. The remaining ships scattered, engines blazing as they fled toward deep space. Static flickered once more as Ward's voice returned. "Ground forces, be advised, Overlord Karzal has deployed to the surface with elite guard units. He intends to crush your command structure." Arlene steadied herself. He's coming for me. Then you have a chance to end this, Ward said. We'll handle the sky. You handle the ground. The channel closed. Marek approached, panting. Captain, the Dominion units are falling back toward the refinery. They're regrouping. Arlene looked toward the distant tunnels glowing red with emergency lights. Her heart thudded once, heavy but certain. Then we push, she said. We take back our home. For the first time in days, she felt strength surge through her chest, strength born not of desperation, but resolve. Humanity had arrived. And they were done retreating. End of Chapter 3. Ready for Chapter 4? Smoke drifted through the lower refinery corridors, curling around shattered pipes and broken railings. Emergency lights pulsed along the ceiling, casting red streaks over the metal walls. Arlene stepped over a collapsed support beam and motioned for her squad to follow. The Terran drop troopers advanced beside them, their heavy exosuits humming softly in the confined space. Dominion forces fell back deeper into the processing chamber, Marek reported, scanning the corridor with a handheld tracker. Movement reads heavy. They're fortifying. Arlene nodded. Karzal wants the final fight here. Vesha's voice crackled through her comm. Captain, thermal readings indicate concentrated energy signatures ahead. Be cautious. His elite guard uses adaptive plating. Noted, Arlene said. Stay linked to surface scans. If overhead structure weakens, warn me. Always, Vesh replied. Arlene pressed onward, rifle raised. Every step brought sharper echoes, scar voices, metal scraping, the hum of charged weapons. The Terran dreadnought still thundered in orbit, muffled blasts reverberating through stone. Humanity's warship fought above. Down here, the outcome depended on flesh, grit, and resolve. A Terran trooper, visor glowing amber, slowed beside her. Captain Voss, we've mapped a route through the ventilation grid. Flanking from upper rails could give us the angle we need. Arlene shook her head. No splits. Karzal expects fragmentation. He wants isolated kills. Marek glanced at her. Then we push together. We push together, she confirmed. They advanced until the corridor opened into a wide chamber, a cavern of metal catwalks hovering above a dim abyss. Below, molten or glowed in deep vats, heat rising in waves. Industrial machinery groaned under structural strain. Sparks cascaded from ruptured conduits. And across the central platform stood Overlord Karzal. He towered over his guard, armored in spiraling black plates etched with violent patterns. His eyes burned with cold fury. When he spoke, his voice rolled through the chamber with venomous resonance. Captain Voss, he boomed. Human defiance in its final breath. Arlene raised her rifle. This colony isn't yours. Karzal stepped forward, talons scraping metal. You fight like trapped vermin. But even vermin resist before extermination. A Terran trooper fired the first shot. The round struck Karzal's guard, shattering armor. Dominion warriors surged forward, weapons igniting in bursts of red light. Move! Arlene shouted. The chamber erupted into chaos. Arlene fired controlled bursts, striking a Scar soldier square in the chest. Marek dove behind a railing, launching a stun disc that slammed into two advancing enemies. Terran troopers unleashed suppressive volleys, their exosuits stabilizing recoil with mechanical precision. Heat from the ore pits washed over them as plasma bolts streaked by. Karzal strode through the firefight, relentless, carving a path with a blade crackling with violet energy. A Terran trooper attempted to intercept, the warlord's strike through the armored soldier across the platform. Arlene pivoted behind a broken terminal and reloaded. Karzal, you wanted a fight. I'm here. The Overlord turned his head slowly, mandibles spreading in a chilling grin. Then die with purpose. He charged. Arlene rolled aside as his blade slammed into the floor, sparks leaping into the air. She fired upward, 3 rounds slamming into his torso. His adaptive plating shifted, absorbing the impact. Marek leapt onto Karzal's flank, stabbing between armor segments. The warlord backhanded him with brutal force. Marek crashed into a railing, gasping. Marek! Arlene shouted. I'm fine, he groaned, forcing himself upright. Karzal advanced again. Your resistance amuses me. Humanity loves impossible odds. Yet you fall all the same. Arlene tightened her grip on her rifle. We don't fall. We keep standing until it matters. You stand alone. No, she said. Not anymore. A thunderous crash echoed overhead as Terran drop troopers descended from upper rails, firing downward. Karzal snarled, raising his blade to deflect incoming rounds. Arlene seized the moment. She sprinted toward a damaged control console on the far wall, one managing ore flow and pressure regulation. Captain. Vesh's voice cut in. What are you doing? Ending this, Arlene answered. She accessed the manual override. Lights flickered, alarms blared. Vesh's voice sharpened. Arlene, those systems are unstable. If you raise pressure, the melting vats will. I know. Karzal turned sharply as he sensed the shift. Heat surged across the chamber as molten ore churned violently, bubbling with growing intensity. Arlene shouted, fall back to the upper rails. Now. Marek grabbed wounded troopers, dragging them toward the nearest ladder. Terran units laid covering fire, retreating with practiced discipline. Karzal roared. You would destroy your own facility. Arlene met his gaze. To protect my people? Yes. She fired at a structural release lever. The lock blew apart, sending a support beam crashing downward. Karzal stumbled as debris crushed one of his guards. You waste lives, he spat. I save them, she said. He charged again, blade raised high. Arlene rolled under a pipe and kicked herself to her feet. His strike sliced the metal where she'd stood, molten fragments scattering. She raised her rifle, but he swatted it away, sending it clattering into the pit below. He towered over her, blade humming. You die first. Not today. Arlene grabbed a severed coolant line and yanked. Pressurized liquid erupted, drenching Karzal's torso. His armor hissed violently. For a moment, his adaptive plating stalled. Arlene seized the chance. She drew her sidearm and fired repeatedly into the exposed joint of his armor. The rounds struck deep, sending him staggering. With a guttural snarl, the warlord lunged, wounded but still monstrous. Arlene braced for the killing blow. A rail round from above struck him square in the chest. Karzal reeled backward, limbs flailing. Marek yelled from the upper walkway, Captain, jump. Arlene leapt toward the nearest ladder. Heat surged behind her as molten ore spilled from ruptured containment lines, flooding the platform in a blazing cascade. Karzal screamed a raw, guttural sound as liquid fire engulfed him. His silhouette thrashed, then sank beneath the glowing surface. Arlene climbed fast, boots slipping on the metal rungs. Marek reached down, grabbing her wrist and hauling her onto the rail. The chamber groaned as machinery collapsed into the spreading molten pool. Steam rose in towering plumes. Above them, Terran drop troopers secured the remaining Dominion stragglers. Silence gradually settled, broken only by distant echoes from settling metal. Arlene leaned against the railing, chest heaving. Marek stood beside her, clutching his ribs. Is it over? He asked quietly. She watched molten ore swirl where Karzal had vanished. It's over. Vesh spoke through the comm, voice trembling with relief. Captain, orbital scans confirm Dominion retreat. The dreadnought is securing the perimeter. Arlene smiled faintly. Good. Moments later, sunlight pierced through holes in the refinery roof, catching drifting smoke in golden beams. The distant thunder of the Archangel Sovereign quieted. Humanity had arrived and stayed. Hours later, Arlene stood atop the main platform of the colony as civilians emerged from the lower shelters. Children clung to parents, soldiers limped beside medics, and Terran troopers surveyed the horizon with disciplined vigilance. When Arlene stepped forward, a wave of silence followed. Then applause spread, hesitant at first, then swelling into a roar that echoed across the rocky valley. Marek approached her side. You did it. No, Arlene said softly. We did. A final transmission arrived from orbit. Captain Ward's voice held quiet pride. Kesserin 4 stands. Humanity stands with you. Arlene lifted her eyes toward the massive shape of the dreadnought gliding across the dawn sky. For the first time since the siege began, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. They were not forgotten. They never had been. End of chapter 4. End of book 1. If you'd like, I can now write. White heavy checkmark an epilogue. White heavy checkmark a book 2 continuation. White heavy checkmark a character dossier. White heavy checkmark a lore expansion of the Terran fleet or Scar Dominion. Just tell me.